whatever you feed into your time becomes multiplied. Now, when we look at this from the aspect or through the lens of marriage and being a husband, it's what we do with our time as a husband in service to our wife is what's going to make an impact when time happens down the line. I've talked about time in previous episodes, but today we're really going to unpack what it means to develop time or develop a relationship over time. So stay tuned. Welcome back to another episode of the Husband Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Chris, and here we are with another episode. Now, today we're talking all about what you can do with your time and how you should probably be looking to invest it, but ultimately that now is the time to start. See, time, no matter where you are in your walk of life, time is going to happen regardless. I woke up this morning and now it's evening and I'm recording this. Time, it just happened. I don't get to pause it and I don't get to go back. But everything that I did from this morning leading up to now has been a compound effect. And this is how you can really measure the level of success you're going to have in your marriage if you really take the time to unpack what it means to invest time wisely in your marriage. Now, I'm going to give this to you in as simple terms as I can because that's just the way that I unpack things. But it goes so much deeper than what I'm going to be talking about on today's episode because if I'm being completely honest, I haven't fully mastered this. If you caught my last episode, you would have known that there was an argument that my wife and I had, and it was specifically talking about what does that quality time really look like. Now, this is a love language, and let me tell you, this is a very important love language, but we're not going that route today. So let's talk about time really quickly. It's this thing that is consistent. It doesn't go faster and it doesn't go slower. It stays at the same rate the whole time through. And no matter what, it's going to pass. Now, what we as people and, just creation as a whole, what we get to do is exist inside of time. And what we do over time will develop or compound. Case in point, if I start walking from, my house and I want to go to the beach and the beach is 50 miles away, if I continue to walk, I will eventually make it to the beach. Now, if I drive, I'm going to get there a little bit faster and, it's unrealistic to fly. But what ends up happening is I'm taking action and I'm moving over time to get to the place that I was trying to go. That's ultimately what we're going to be talking about here. Now, I'll give another analogy. The way that time really works is like lifting weights. I know I use this often, but I got to use it because I think it's the best visual. But what happens is when you go to the gym and you start working out, very few developmental growth changes will actually happen over your body. However, after weeks, months, years of exercising, you will start to develop the physique that you're going for, given some other things were taken into consideration as you were building your workout routine and your plan. However, if you don't go to the gym, that time is still going to pass. That week, month, year, decade, whatever it may be, that's still going to pass and you're going to be in the same place that you're at. So what does that really have to do with being a husband? If we don't take action today, and I did an episode earlier in the year talking about you got to take action now, and this is exactly what I'm talking about, because if you don't take action today, well, tomorrow you're not going to be any better than you were today. However, if you take action today and then you show up tomorrow and you take action tomorrow and then you show up the next day and you take action and you continue that trend, after a week, you're going to see improvement. I also did an episode about improving 1% at a time. See, these episodes, they really do compound on top of one another. And, it's one of those things where I'm amazed at how many people are not willing to take the time to develop themselves one step at a time, right? The most professional bodybuilder didn't become the world bodybuilder champion or whatever it is, because I don't know, in one day. Just as you're not going to become a exquisite husband in one day, all right? It's going to be one of those things that you develop over time. And the beauty of it is you get to enjoy the process and then develop and you get the progress. Now, to me, I think that that's probably one of the best aspects of any form of growth, because that's the growth mindset. Again, I got episodes all over talking about that idea as well. However, what I really wanted to drive home is if you start today, a year from now, you will be thanking yourself. But if you do not start today, a year from now, you will be regretting it, and then you'll have to start. You know, there's a saying, when is the best time to grow a tree? Well, 100 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. The reason is we need time to refine us. We need time to develop us, and we need time so that way things can compound. Time is essential, but action is more important than time itself. Because if you're taking taking action over time, you're going to develop, you're going to grow, and you're going to progress. Now, I want to give some actionable steps here because I think that it's only fair that if you're going to use your time wisely that you have, then I think now is it's only fair for me to give you something that you can take with you and say, okay, I know what I'm going to do with my time. So here's the deal. I'm a big fan of routines, and I have a routine that I use, but I'm not telling you that you have to use my routine. What I'm going to say is, though, that every day you should take 2 minutes to invest in your wife. That's it, 2 minutes. Now, I hope that you don't stay at 2 minutes for a very long time, because I think as you start to invest in your wife more and more, I think you're going to find that you're going to want to naturally invest into your wife. And that means spending time with her, doing things with her, doing things for her. I've mentioned many times I take my wife coffee or I make coffee, and now that's just a part of my routine. Obviously not right now because I'm traveling, but when I'm at home, I am making her coffee and taking her coffee because I want to serve her in that way. And she does appreciate it. She gets excited. That doesn't take very much time. And I would say it takes less than 2 minutes, but it's still something that's a part of my routine. And it's a part of what our relationship has developed into. I want you to go find that for your relationship. What is that 2-minute thing that you can do every single day for your wife to serve her, to love her, to build her up, to show her that you are still the man that she married and that you still desire her, that you still care for her, that you still are excited about her? Because when you do that over a week, well, now you've spent 14 minutes, right? 2 times 7, 14 minutes developing your marriage, and you did it every single day. What matters more is that you're developing a habit of showing up and serving your wife and loving your wife. That's so much more important than the amount of time, because eventually your time is going to go up. There's going to be that moment when you'll be like, hey, I'm going to spend 30 minutes, and that's great. Today, what I don't want to talk about is time in the aspect of what you have to use in order to show what makes you show that you love your wife, right? That you have to spend 30 minutes or 40 minutes a day or an hour a day. That's not what I want to talk about today. What I really want to talk about is the long game, right? Because there's short things that lead to long prizes, right? There's a guy that I watch on YouTube. He says, small tweaks lead to giant peak. And I want to get you to that giant peak because there's so many men that have contacted me in the past that I still keep in contact with today. And they just tell me, like, I want to get to the point in my marriage where things are just smooth. And as much as I would love to say that that's what's going to happen, and there are some people out there with some marriages where things are just smooth and there's never or very rarely are there issues or conflicts or whatever. But the truth is that's not the reality of marriage, right? We need those conflicts to refine us, and that's okay. But here's the deal. What you should be doing is appreciating the process of getting to the point of those nice tall peaks, those eureka moments, that bliss of a marriage that you are seeking. When you get to the point where you have invested so much time, you've done so much to actually build your marriage, then that's when you're going to get the payoff. But if you don't do the work, you're not going to get the payoff. Like, marriage is not one of those things where you can just wish it well. It's just not the way it works. Any relationship that you ever want to develop, that you want to build, you have to do over time, and you have to really invest in it. So what I really want to do is encourage the men who may be a little bit more on the fence or standoff about, well, I got married and that's like the end of what I really needed to do. My wife is supposed to serve me, and what I'm saying here, or what I'm hoping is coming across, is an encouragement to go and love your wife. Now, that's no different than anything that I've ever talked about, that's no different than the theory or the philosophy of this entire show, the crux of the show, the tagline of the show, to love your wife every day. And it's so important because, like, the second part of my tagline is to love your wife every day and become a better man in the process. That's something that I don't mention as often because everything that I share is hopefully making you a better husband in the process or a better man in the process. You're setting an example for your children if you have children, or you're being a role model for other young couples if you are in a like if you have friendship, if you have friends that are also married. And there are so many people that compare marriages. It actually blows my mind how many people actually compare marriages, like, oh, Jimmy and Sally, they do this, we should probably try something like that. And I'm not opposed to that, right? Try things, experiment, see what works, see what doesn't work, because the only way that you're really going to find out what works and what doesn't work is if you try it. Minus some things that you could probably think like, oh yeah, that's not gonna work. But for the most part, the only way that you're gonna find out if something works is if you try it. And that's what I want you to do. I want every man who listens to this podcast to become a man of action. I want every man who listens to this content to take action on the things that they need to do to improve their marriage. So that way, when you look back on this day next week, on this day next month, on this day next year, you will be a man that has been changed, and you'll see the growth, you'll see the progress. But then I want you to keep doing it, because then when you look back on this 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, and you're reflecting on your marriage, where it was and where it is today, because you were consistent along with time. If time keeps moving and you show up every day and you just move along with it in a positive way, in a meaningful way, in a purposeful way, you are going to develop the marriage that you're hoping to have and that you and your wife deserve to have. Now, obviously, your wife has a role to play in this. She has a part to play in this, and I'm not even going to touch on that. However, we as the men, we have to be the leaders. Our wives will take after our lead. And I think that there's too many men that are being intimidated because of the culture today that is lowering the value of what a man, what the husband's role is in marriage. And, with the passivity, if I said that right, of, well, I just need to do things that makes my wife happy and then I'll be happy. No, that's not what I'm saying, because I don't want that to come across. I'm not saying to do something to pacify your wife so that way you could be let off the hook. What I'm saying is take action, meaningful and purposeful action that serves your wife in a meaningful and loving way. So that way, in turn, you start to develop your marriage, and you start to develop your character, you start to develop your desire for her. And that is so much more pure and genuine than this very off-brand, at least for what I would say is a healthy marriage and a positive marriage and an influential marriage. The idea that happy wife, happy life. I've already said or at least one time that I can recall on this podcast, so I'll make this the second time. That statement is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, your wife should be happy. That's not the problem, or that's not the part that I disagree with. But happy wife, happy life. You can have a happy life even if your wife isn't happy, and even if your wife is happy, guess what? You might not have a happy life because your wife may be satisfied, but you are miserable because you're getting stepped on, because you're doing things that you don't want to do, because you don't know how to communicate, you don't know how to just talk with your wife, how to negotiate on things that are of matter or that are passionate, that you have a passion about. There's all kinds of reasons why I would just recommend you don't buy into that particular subject or that saying. If we can make a stand today together, rally in arms, no more happy wife, happy life as the generic statement when we refer to dealing with things with our wife. Instead, it should probably be more of a statement of, I'm not afraid of having difficult discussions with my wife. I'm not intimidated by the idea that if my wife disagrees with me, that I can't go and tell her why something should be the other way, and that I'm okay with putting on the proverbial gloves and having a fair fight with my wife about a circumstance or a situation. You see, that is so much more important and helpful to your marriage than if you say, happy wife, happy life. You know, I'm doing stuff or making it as if you are lesser than she is. That's a very false narrative. And that's not me saying like husbands are the elitists. You know, there's a balance in marriage, and it's really this beautiful symmetry of 100 100. And you know, some people will say, well, it's 80-20, or maybe it's flip-flop. Maybe today I'm given 80 and my wife is given 20, or vice versa. I'm given 20 and my wife is given 80. No, it's 100 100 if you ask me. And the reason why it's 100 100 is that you have to put in work and she has to put in work, and you have to do it daily. It's either 0 or it's 100. There's no in between, all right? Because if you don't put in the work, that's a 0. And if you put in halfway work, that's a 0. Because halfway, yes, sure, it's an attempt. But if you do it halfway, did you really put in the work? Because if I say I halfway shot the basketball, you would be like, what do you mean you halfway shot the basketball? Like you didn't shoot the basketball, because either the ball released from your hand and it went towards the goal, or it stayed in your hand. And, you know, like, what is a halfway shot? There's no such thing. And that's what I'm saying about marriage. There's no halfway. It's either you did or you didn't. You know, the old Yoda, there is no try. There's do and there's do not. Which one are you going to be on at the end of the day? My hope and my vote is that you are on the do side of the thing, whatever it may be, whatever it looks like in your marriage. And there could be some things that are small, like, again, me taking coffee to my wife. But then there could be bigger things where my wife needs me to actually cook dinner or drive across town to go deliver something, pick something up, whatever it may be. Teach the kids, because we homeschool. That could be a big thing for my wife. Or it could be something as big as, hey, my wife needs to leave town and I need to take off work so I can be with the kids. There are a number of things. And that's what I'm saying, that we have to do the work if we want the outcome. Hopefully this episode was value added to those of you who are ready to take the action necessary. And if you are, then let's do it. So I'm gonna leave it there. And until next time, I want you guys to find a way to love your wife every day.